Folks, this man needs no introduction. Glenn Twiddle here, John McGrath. Thank you, my man. I know you like the shortest introductions in the world.
That was a good one, I like that.
John McGrath. Mate, we're here today at another conference. I couldn't be at a conference where you're speaking without pulling you aside and saying, John, let me pick the great man's brains.
Good to be here.
Mate, excellent. And I wanted to ask you a bunch of things, but mate, the thing on top of my mind awareness is, mate, you got Tom Peters out in search of excellence. Spent 2 days. Mate, what were some of your biggest takeaways from really the Napoleon Hill of business, isn't he?
No, he's amazing, and we had Rupert Murdoch and a few other great speakers. So the idea, Glenn, was we wanted Australian real estate leaders to go up to a whole new level. So to do that, I want to expose them to what I think are the best thinkers, coaches and entrepreneurs in the world.
Yeah.
So I started with who do I think is number one. I think, well, certainly from Australia's standpoint, Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah.
Then who has probably had some of the biggest impact on my life, and I know, like you, Tom Peters.
Yeah.
So I kind of then cascaded down to who else could surround them. So Tom Peters, I listen to him literally every morning for 20 or 30 minutes.
Wow.
While I'm in the shower, reimagine.
Still now?
Yes.
Wow.
Reimagine is a fantastic audiobook, and I read it, so I listen to it over and over again. So, look, Tom has got a few really big themes. They've been running for a few years, and customer experience, customer service is obviously a clear one for him.
Yeah.
And he talks about the fact that experience is different from service. A lot of people say we think we give good service, and what he really reinforced, Glenn, was what about the experience? Does someone walk away from that saying, "Wow, that was kind of like amazing"? And he talked about a little thing. One of the stories he told was when he was landing on Kingfisher Airlines, which I think is somewhere wasn't Alaska, it was sort of Central Europe somewhere, and excuse me. And it was kind of rough coming into land, and he didn't think he was going to crash, but it's one of those feelings, when you're like, you get a bit queasy. And he's kind of sort of saying his Hail Marys and the flight attendant came up to him and she said, "Sir, can I get you a drink or anything?" And he's kind of almost speechless, and she said, "Would you like me to clean your glasses?" And he said, for 20 years I've remembered that. He said, she sort of settled me down, and he said I could see in her a level of confidence and calm that calmed me down.
Wow.
And the fact that she asked me could I clean my glasses was kind of like a weird thing to trigger him.
Yeah.
So he said, what is your equivalent of can you help them clean their glasses? Everyone expects you to be polite, courteous, punctual, etc., etc. But very few people actually do and say something that you remember for years.
Yeah.
So he talked about that. He talked about the importance of that. Obviously he's big on internet digital, that's really key, but he does talk about high tech and high touch. So even in this age of digital that we now live within, he's very much around customer experience.
Yeah.
So that was phenomenal, and he just told us these case studies and amazing things. There was another guy that spoke who most of our listeners may not have heard, but he's a young Aussie called Pete Sheehan. He wrote a book called Flip, F-L-I-P exclamation mark. He disappeared to the States about a decade ago, and that's why most Australians haven't now heard of him. But he's now one of the hottest speakers in the States. He gives over 100 speeches a year, and his company gives over 17,000 talks a year, because he's now got a team of people around him. So he's a real Aussie success story, but unfortunately one of those that we don't hear about.
Yeah.
So Pete came on and he talked, the massive change that's happening, and he talked about this case study of Burberry, the clothing retailer.
Yeah.
They've had a new CEO come in, and the new CEO's done a phenomenal job, because Burberry was a bit of a dusty old brand, like some real estate brands out there. So the opportunity is on a serious note, the opportunity is to reinvent.
Absolutely.
So it's now one of the coolest brands, but it went from being this dusty old sort of brand. So he tells this experience, and I'll just relay it for your listeners, because your guys I know want to keep on the leading edge. Burberry now, in London, you walk into one of their flagship stores. It has this so sophisticated CRM that it actually not only knows what you have bought before, it has, if it's captured your image, which it often does,
so it's recognising
facial recognition. It walks in and it says, Glenn's walked in. Whoever is allocated to look after you is automatically provided, obviously subtly and secretly, is provided a list of your buying history. Well, get this though. Not only does it tell what Glenn has bought over the history of a relationship, and who he is and married or whatever, it also has an algorithm that works out what are your most likely buying targets going
next.
forward.
Wow.
So it says, okay, Glenn bought, a handbag and a belt and an outfit, but he hasn't bought a trench coat, and it's now winter. So probability is that he's probably, so you may want to suggest him buying a trench coat. So you think about this incredible thing of people saying, oh, technology, I'm on the internet and I have a CRM. But while a lot of people are sleepily just starting to find out about CRM, Burberry are actually working out what are you going to buy next. It gets better.
Wow.
So
I was just thinking, as a little side note, would that be the equivalent, I think, of what Amazon do to us? Because we bought certain books, it suggests us the most likely book. So similar online.
Sophisticated version, but exactly right. Wow. So people like you bought this, so you might want it.
Yeah.
So then the attendant, and this is all subtly done. There's no, we know who you are, we know what you bought, we know what you're going to buy.
That's it.
That would kind of freak
I love
out.
the covert nature of it, mate.
But, it says, Glenn, just might let you know we have some trench coats on special over here. Wow. You go over, if you're interested, you go over and whatever product, you touch a product on the shelf or on the hanger, a video comes up near you, tells you the history of the garment, and it shows you often it being made.
Wow.
So you're there and you pick it up and you try it on, and also the video comes up and it says the Burberry trench coat, has been established for the last 50 years, our latest design, and it's giving you this kind of cool mini advert on the wall next to you.
Yeah. Wow.
So, in real estate, can you do that? Well, the answer is probably something like that, but we need to now figure it out. So the key is always, because some people switch off and say, oh, well, that's Burberry, they're worth billions, that's retail. The smart people say, wow, that's fascinating. How could we apply that philosophy or direction to real estate in Australia?
Yep.
And by the way, I'm a single office, so I haven't got millions to invest, but I can partner with someone. I always say a good idea costs no more than a bad idea. So just have a think about it.
Yep.
Read things like Fast Company, research people like Pete Sheehan, Tom Peters, all of these. Go to events, and learn the best. So I thought that was amazing.
Wow,
Peter Sheehan thing was amazing. Yeah. Tom Peters also spoke about. Sorry, I'm just telling you things.
I love it, mate.
He spoke about you equal your calendar, and then he went on to say that calendars don't lie. Where you're putting your time and effort into your business, it will be reflected in your calendar. So go back and have a look over the last 3 months, month, whatever. Have a look. How much time have you been investing growing the business, working on the business rather than in the business, recruiting new talent, coaching your talent, and then make a log of that. So he said you've got to realise, one is sometimes you've got to say no to stuff. Stuff that's not really meaningful, important to you or others that you can add some value, you have to say no. Two is when you say yes, make sure it's the right stuff you're saying yes to. So that was really...
Some question your judgment of saying yes to this today, John, from me.
No,
I'm just kidding. Mate.
No, but it's actually a good question in a sense, because I do quite a bit of this stuff, and people occasionally do. The reason for me is, one is I have a core belief and a core value that I like spreading my ideas, because the reality is I didn't come up with most of them. I found them from people like Peters, Sheehan, yourself, others. I listen and I take notes. So it would be kind of arrogant and silly of me to think they should stop here and I need to keep them. So I think spreading ideas and connections and relationships. I mean, you're doing a great job for the industry. I know you add a lot of value to our team. People like Matt Steinway do a lot of work with you. So, God, Matt Steinway is one of the best people on the planet. I can't help a friend of Matt's, to put on a good event. So, no, I think it's, but it is a good question. You've got to keep asking, is what I'm doing. And it doesn't have to be adding value purely to your business. I mean, a day of work at a charity is amazing value add.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, it may not make you money, but it adds to your value, it adds to your soul, it adds to the community. So, it doesn't strictly have to be, purely a dollar productive activity. The other thing we did is we had some great case studies in Mastery where we had Owens and Castley from Adelaide, we had Jellis Craig and Marshall White from Melbourne, we had Cobden Hayson in Sydney, we had Martin Cooper from Auckland. 5 of what I think are the best real estate agents in the Southern Hemisphere, probably the world. And they gave this case study on what they were doing, mind-blowing. Unfortunately we didn't record it, we couldn't record it because Rupert Murdoch was our keynote, and so we kind of had this deal that we wouldn't record any of the speakers, but that's fine.
So those 100, 200 people that were there, mate, they got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that can never be repeated.
Wow. Unfortunately, because that was actually the first time he's ever spoken, Mr. Murdoch has ever spoken at such an event. And look, Tom comes back occasionally, but I guess at this stage of his career, he's probably, I think he's early 70s, he may not be on the road for that much longer. I mean, I know he's got a lot of years to live, because he's still in great shape. But so that was interesting. But the case studies, Cobden Hayson, a company in Sydney, they're really hot. They're one of our competitors, unfortunately. No, fortunately, because we love great competition because they make us get better. Iron sharpens
iron, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Matty Hayson did a fantastic presentation on what are they doing on video, what are they doing on digital, online, what are they doing in collateral, what are they doing in the local community. They're a really hot company. But all the brands do a great presentation. The boys from Adelaide, they're like up and coming, fantastic. Have you met Owens and Castley?
No, I haven't. But I've watched some of the
Alex
interviews.
And Nathan. No, they're really
with Tom, our friend Tom Panos. Absolutely, mate. Last question before you got to get onto stage, mate. There's 200 people in there waiting for you. But thank you for this. But last question. You've confessed to me once that you are very careful before you take action. You know, your advent of video. Now McGrath is a leader in video, but it took you a while to research and study and make the move en masse across the brand. One of Peter's principles is certainly a bias for action.
Ready, fire, right?
Absolutely. and so with that, things like that great idea you just mentioned before, is how's McGrath going to go forward with that bias for action, but also weighing that up against being careful of the right move?
Look, it's a great thing, and I think like everything in life, there's black, there's white, there's grey. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we look at social media. We were probably semi-late adopters of it. That didn't mean we weren't watching it, Glenn, but we just wanted to see, and we had a gut feeling at that point that the effort we had to put in to make it meaningful was not going to have sufficient payback. Until it got to a point where we saw the pendulum tip and we thought, you know, now it feels to us like social media has shifted from purely a social play to now media. Corporate channel.
Yes.
And now we have 32,000 Facebook likes. So, you know, we got in it. We do daily posts and stuff. So if we do something, we want to do it really well.
Yes.
But I do agree with the bias for action, the ready, fire, aim. He showed that slide. And we do a bit of that as well. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll think, you know, here's an idea. What can we do? Let's just do it. In fact, the $1 Million Agent thing I do with Tom, which is a weekly little podcast, I literally was listening to a sales podcast in my bathroom in the morning while in the shower. I listened to Tom Peters or podcast. I was listening to it and I was getting a lot out of it. I thought, wow, this is really valuable. I wish it was for real estate. It doesn't matter. It's still good sales.
Yep.
So then, why don't
we have one? Yeah.
I literally then got dressed, got in the car, knowing that Tom gets up at 5 a.m. because I leave for work at 6:45. So I'm in the car 6:45 and I ring him and he answers. And he said, Johnny, what can I help you with? And I said, I've just listened to this great podcast. We should do one. And Tom said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And I told him a bit about it. And I said, let's just get Troy, who's our digital guru and design guru. I said, let's get Troy to book it in and let's just do it. And he said, what will we call it? And I said, I don't know, you throw some ideas on an email, I'll throw some ideas, Troy will throw some ideas, and we came up with $1 Million Agent. Then we just designed a bit of a logo, we kind of picked a few bits and pieces out of things we like, and we did it, and now we do it every week, and it works really well. I think we've had 200,000, so a lot of downloads. I think we've got about 7,000 subscribers. So that was a great example of ready, fire, aim, and now it's become, you know, it's got quite a following, and it's a good thing that we love doing. So I think there's a bit of both. I think sometimes you look at something and you have to have a gut feeling, is the time right? Is this a key priority? Or is this something that's a great idea that I need to think about a bit longer? Or a little bit ahead of its time? Or let's just do it. So I think we do a bit of both, but it's a good point. You know, sometimes I have no doubt, because I have this kind of disease called perfectionism and obsessive compulsive, that I sometimes probably want to perfect things too much. So I got to keep that. So thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, no, sorry, mate. Well, it fascinates me that I probably go too quick on things and go home, and yet you and I have so many of the same mentors. I mean, Seth Godin. When I read Purple Cow and all of Seth's books, I think this is my life story, and you as well are a student of Seth. And yet we execute with slightly different, I suppose, styles, but it all comes from the same source material, you know. It's interesting, and it fascinates me how whenever I see your reading list, whenever you quote anyone, whenever you bring out speakers, I think it's like John's got my library, you know, as his. You know?
Well, you know, you can't beat a classic. You mentioned Napoleon Hill and Seth Godin and Tom Peters. I mean, these guys.
And these are all guys who spoke on your stage, mate. All these guys. You're
we haven't got Seth Godin yet. We want to get Seth Godin. We did try and get him for mastery alongside Tom Peters, and the timing didn't work out for what he's doing. But I'd love to have him do a real estate event, because every Australian real estate agent needs to have a few hours with Seth Godin.
Agreed.
You know,
even through his blogs and his audiobooks. I mean, I'm listening to Purple Cow audiobook for the 5th time last night in my hotel room.
Yeah, you've got to get on.
It's the Bible. It's the Bible, mate. Folks, John McGrath is appearing at Be Phenomenal with us with Matt Steinroad. It's going to be great, mate. Thanks so much for today. Have a blast in there today, mate.
Thank you.
Signing off, folks. Glenn Twiddle. Thank you.
absolutely brilliant. World-class lineup as far as speakers were concerned.
It doesn't matter where you're at right now.
When they think of real estate, you're going to be the first person of choice.
If you don't want to make more money, then I'm wasting your time.
I promise you, you will double your income.
The only thing between where you are and what you want is you.
Now I know what it's truly like to want to be successful.
You've got to be successful. You have to be committed.
My God, this guy knows what he's doing.